Here we are a couple days later. Just went and picked up our parts from our local Sthil dealer, which is Royal Edger and Mower in Clearwater, Florida. We got a new sprocket, new clutch. We bought a brand new carburetor rather than trying to rebuild, because apparently they don't have an actual rebuild kit. So we've gone ahead and just bought a whole new carburetor. So hopefully that'll be make this a little more simplified. New clutch, new sprocket. New fuel line, new fuel filter, and so we're going to go ahead and get all that assembled today. Alright, so kind of laid out the new parts here. So here we have our clutch, fuel line, this is our fuel filter, and this is our shaft bearing, or needle bearings. This is a brand new sprocket gear, right? See how nice those are? Nice and clean that is. And then a brand new carburetor. I'll list out the part numbers for everything here, and then we'll go ahead and we'll list that in the description below. So I just wanted to show you a comparison of what the old sprocket was, which is right in here, and you can see how grooved that sprocket is right there, and that's our brand new sprocket. Probably time to replace it, don't you think? All right, well, let me set this back up on the tripod and we'll get back to assembly. What I'm going to do is go ahead and start with our clutch. And remember, that has the new plate or washer, and it should be marked with top. Let's take a look and see if it is. Yep, sure is. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but it does say top across here, just like the old one says top. So we know that's got to go in here just like this, and then our clutch will go in. And remember, our clutch is reverse thread, so righty tighty again does not apply here. It would be righty loosey, lefty tighty. So we're gonna So we'll hand tighten that as much as we can. Let me go ahead and grab my 19mm socket. And we still have our rope inside the piston to make sure that piston stays in place, and that way we can get it nicely tightened down here. So we'll go ahead and get this thing snugged up. Alright, our sleeve just popped into place, and we'll go ahead and just snug that up. Alright, great. So now that's snugged up, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to replace this old needle bearing here, and that will slide onto the shaft here. What we need to do is take our new one out. We want to keep it clean as possible. We don't want any foreign debris on there, which would potentially ruin the brand new bearing. And that wouldn't be good, because this stupid little thing was quite expensive. So we go ahead and pop this out, and I'm going to go ahead and pause right here, and I'm going to go grab. Alright, so we went and got a little bit of high temp bearing grease here. It doesn't take much for this machine, for this purpose anyway. So we'll put a little bearing grease on the shaft, and then we'll go ahead and pack this little bearing with some bearing grease. It shouldn't take a lot, but we do want to make sure we get it greased really well. We don't want this thing to burn up on us out in the middle of the woods. Alright, so you see that little shiny piece down there in between the clutch and that ring, right in, let me see if I can find that for you real quick here, right in there. We need to make sure that the sprocket notch sits on top of that, because that is our oiler worm gear. So we got to make sure we catch that, and then I'm going to go ahead and put you back on the tripod and we'll finish. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get this thing installed real quick here, and we want to make sure that we line this up. Again, like I said, we want to line this up right over our worm gear. Alright guys, so what we were attempting to do here is put our sprocket drive back on, our brand new one. But inside of here, you can see right around here, there's this little band. And it was giving me fits trying to put this new sprocket back in. What I figured out was I had this brake on, and it had the belt or that band tightened down. So you need to make sure you release it or pull it back and lock it in so that you can get your new sprocket on. So I'm going to be pretty straightforward. When I make a mistake, I'm going to show you what I did, and that's what I struggled like crazy with trying to figure out. So just so you know, pull your brake lock back, and then you should be able to slide this right on. Now again, you want to make sure you look for your oiler worm in here, and mine is right towards the bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing installed right now. Okay, that's it, easy peasy. So now we're going to go ahead and finish up the assembly here. So the next thing to go on is going to be our retainer washer. And again, I believe this should tell us the up or top. And we'll take a look at that real quick and just see if we can see it, which I believe is going to be this way. Yep. Alright, so let's go ahead and get that back on. Alright, and then we're going to take the clip, which I'm sure some people call this a C clip or an E clip. I guess you can call it either one. It kind of looks like both. We're going to go ahead and get that back on here as well. So we're just going to put that into position right there. And I'm going to take my screwdriver. Try not to get my fingers in the way, but try and push this back on. And there we go. So that's reassembled. All right, cool. So now our clutch is back, put back together. We've got our oiler worm gear underneath our drive sprocket. That worm gear is what oils your bar and your chain. So you want to make sure you have that in place so you don't burn up chains and bars all day long. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on the back of the unit here. And we're going to get this thing reassembled. So as part of my cleaning process, I plugged up our intake here just so it wouldn't get any kind of grime in it. And we're also going to go ahead and work on replacing our fuel filter and our line. So we're going to do that next. And let me just go ahead and pull you off the tripod here, and I'm going to see if we can show you what we got here. So we've got our line in here, and we're going to use our little pick tool to pull this out. Now this isn't that old. Well, I say it's not old, but it is actually a few years old. But it hasn't really been used much, but I figure since we're in here, we may as well go ahead and replace it. So we're just going to go ahead and pull that off. And this fuel line is like, I swear it's like a rubber band. So we pulled our filter off, and then we're going to come inside here, and we're going to go ahead and just pull this through from the top, and it just pulls right out. And you can see it's got this ring around it here, and that seals your tank from sucking air, which will ruin performance of the engine as well. And we have brand new fuel line, and we have a brand new. Alright, so let's go ahead and get these installed now. Again, I'll provide all the parts numbers and everything in case you need those. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to run the S end down through the tank, into the tank. Alright, let me pull you guys off here and we'll see if we get a better look for you. So the fuel line right there, that is going to go, pull this out of the way. Let's see if we can show you that. right there. That's where we want the fuel line to go through into our tank. And then we'll come over here and we're gonna pull that through with a pair of needle nose pliers. All right, so I got a couple of pairs of needle nose. Got some shorter, stubbier ones, and I've got some real long ones here. I think we'll try and use these first to pull it from our fuel tank out so that we can put our new fuel filter on there. Sorry guys, I'm waving at the mosquitoes out here. We live in Florida and I think that's our state bird. So we'll go ahead and feed this down to the tube, just like we said before. Push that down in there. Alright, so I'm going to see if I can grab that from inside and give her a little pull through. Alright, great. So you can see that line's feeding through. So one thing you want to make sure of, and I'll show you here on the old one, is this ring here. You want to seat that through into the tank. So you want this side of it to be in the tank. And that gives you good seal. It doesn't let air suck up into your carburetor and cause performance issues. So again, what we've got here is we've got this pull through. I wouldn't worry about tearing these things. They're pretty durable. So we're going to go ahead and give this thing a good pull and make sure we can get this thing to seat in there for us. Alright, so we have our fuel line in. We'll get that up here. We got it coming out here. I stopped the camera. I was just fighting with it so much. But I'll tell you, what I had to eventually do was take the fuel line, take my flat, and just kind of start pressing around the top of it, and it finally pushed its way through to the tank. So a little bit of perseverance, pretty much all it's going to take to get that done. I just didn't want to waste a ton of time for you guys to have to sit through and watch me struggle with that whole thing. But it's not hard. I mean, it just takes a little perseverance, and you know, you can do anything. So we're going to go ahead now and put on our little fuel filter here. Make sure you get it pushed all the way down. You don't want that to flop off in there. Alright, so that's it guys, that's your fuel line installed. Pretty cool. Great. Now, next thing is our carburetor. So we want to go ahead and get the carburetor out. So it comes with a little bit of information for us as well. Oh, looks like that's just a different fitting, which we're not going to need. So this is our old one. We're actually going to remove this plastic piece here because that fits into the air filter. We went ahead and pull that off, put that back onto the new one. Alright. Alright. So that's seated on the new one. Then we're going to go ahead and put that back on here. Carb. And let's go ahead and put on our, I don't think, let's see here. So we'll put our fuel line on first, I think, because it does have a little flexibility. So we'll get this thing slid on all the way. And then we want to make sure that we get that into the return. This port here is going to go into this return, which should just slide in. Perfect, not a problem at all. That's exactly what we wanted it to do. The next thing, we're going to go ahead and put this retainer back on. Again, these are all telling us which end should be up. Guys, remember, these are 8mm bolts. Put this on as well. And those are your high-low screws. Alright, perfect. And we got those on. Let's go ahead and finish snugging up our nuts here. Just get them tight. You don't need to go, crazy. It's probably only inch-pounds of torque, which should just be hand tightened. Alright, awesome. So that's in. Now, last step inside of here is to get our air filter back on. So we're going to go ahead and install our air filter like so. We want to make sure that we get this into this rubber here, and that gives us a proper air seal. Again, if we don't get these things assembled correctly, we'll have some serious performance issues on this engine. We'll go ahead and tighten this down. And this is our throttle for our throttle. So we want to make sure we get that connected in here. And we just come in like this. Through the eye. And then we pull our trigger and click it back in. There we go, heard a click. Now we got our trigger assembly back for throttle. And we have choke, right? Alright, so now everything's back together inside of here. So let's go ahead and get this air filter back on again. Like I said, guys, you're gonna make mistakes. Nothing we're doing here is rocket science. This should be a fun project. I mean, it's work. Don't get me wrong, it's work, but it's fun. There's a sense of accomplishment of completing things, right? I mean, I have worked a desk job majority of my adult life. And I'll tell you what, when I work through a stack of paper, there's no sense of accomplishment. But when you take something apart and put it back together again and you can fire it up and it works right, man, I'll tell you what, that's a sense of accomplishment. Alright, so we got our air filter back on. Throttle is reassembled. This I'm going to run out and grab us a spark plug real quick here before we finish this video, or then we'll finish up the video. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get our saw bar back on with our chain. So when we took our bar off, the steel was right side up. This time when we assemble our bar, I want to assemble it upside down. And the reason for that is for bar wear and warp. And so you should do that anytime, you know, every so many hours. I don't really know if there's even a recommended time. I'm just doing it now because, you know, it's time to get it done. Alright, so make sure you get your teeth running the right way, because you can't cut them if they're backwards, right? So let's go ahead and get our teeth on here. Alright, so now we've got our bar back on. We've got around our chain sprocket here, and we have it all on our bar, and we have our cutting direction going the correct way. Now what we want to do is go ahead and get our chain guard on. We'll go ahead and get that installed and clean that out too. I mean, it just doesn't hurt to clean this thing out periodically as well. Clean the whole inside out. Alright, so let's go ahead and get those on. I believe these are 19mm also. Sorry if there's a bunch of car and motorcycle background noise, but it's the end of the workday here, and I live on a huge busy road in Pinellas County, Florida, so it can get quite noisy. So we got another project we're going to work on. I'll talk about that a little bit while I'm doing this. Is I have I believe it's 16-foot trailer, and we're going to change our trailer chains, our safety chains out, and then reinstall them in different locations on our trailer. In addition to that, we're probably going to go ahead and redo the wiring for the lights as well, and get those kind of fixed up a little bit. Alright, so what we need to do now is get this bar adjusted out correctly. So as you can see here, we got a whole lot of slack in this chain, and we don't want that. Alright, so when tightening this up, you want to pull your bar up if you can. Let's see, I may have gotten that a little too tight. Yep. So pull your bar up as you try to tighten your chain. We'll go ahead and get this tightened up. There we go. That's good. So let's go ahead and take our nuts here and let's go ahead and tighten those down just a bit. Again, you want to keep that bar up. And then let's go ahead and tighten those down. Yeah, you know, again, sometimes it's gotta think things through just a smidge. So I loosened it up way too much because I had the lock on. So let's go ahead and fix that problem real quick. All right, let's see. Okay, put that bar up. We should be able to move that freely, which we can. All right, now let's tighten this grill down. All right, again, we should be able to move rather freely. And we are looking good. Okay. Good deal. So, I'm going to get a new spark plug and then we're going to fire this thing up. Alright guys, so I just got back from my home improvement center and picked up a new spark plug. It's one of these E3 spark plugs. Don't know if you guys have used those before or not. I honestly don't think I have. But if you have and you like them, comment below and let me know what you think. And if you've used them and you don't like them, comment below and let me know why. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing installed. I usually like to try and run a few threads by hand first so we don't cross thread anything in the process. So again, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my 3/4 inch socket and we're going to go ahead and get this thing tightened up real quick. So we're going to go ahead and just get this thing snugged up. Alright. Nice and snug. We're going to put our spark plug wire back on. Put our cover back on. It's dirty, but whatever, the rest of it's clean, right? Lock that into place. Alright, so we're going to go put some fuel in this thing. Alright guys, here she is all back together. We're going to go ahead and fire her up. I have not fired it up at all. I just put fuel in it. So let's see if we get this thing to start. I know some of you are probably going to give me grief about wearing flip-flops and not all the protective equipment. But I'm not going out to cut wood. I just want to start it up and run it and make sure it runs. Alright, so here we go. First start up. There we go. Alright, that's awesome news. So thanks for watching that video. I know it was really long, but I feel like it gave a lot of detail on what I had to go through to get that thing apart and back together. I tried not to hide anything, just so that everybody would know exactly what the process was. In the future, we're going to try and make these things a little shorter, but this one had a lot of detail to it, so I hope you guys enjoy it. If you like it, you know, click like, subscribe, you know, hit that little bell so that you can get any notifications when we upload new content. And we look forward to hanging out with you guys again here at Gray Beard Garage.